This is why it's under appeal, and they have not issued a sentence yet.
So in our country,
don't know what you're talking about.
I don't have me, Brian Shapiro, do a show called Pushing the Limits. I am an independent that is extremely anti-Donald Trump.
We just had this protest over the weekend, No Kings. One of the most effective protests we have seen in the history of the United States, as following the protest, there are no kings.
More people have been deported that are
not related to what you're saying.
I figure the prioritization
I think you lack the cognitive ability to connect the dots.
No, I'm not the president either. You're comparing me to Donald Trump.
This is not a real argument. This is
not a real argument.
It's certainly not a real argument.
Complain about something as the president for 9 years, but don't have any solutions. And you don't think that's a real argument.
Name every single president ever who complained about something and didn't solve the problem.
I think you want to talk about being fiscally responsible. The guy who you support got us $8.2 trillion in debt his first go.
Well,
you have no choice, and individuals are going to get negative.
So let's be fiscally responsible by gold plating the White House. Is that fiscally
who's paying for it?
No, I'm not talking about the ballroom. I'm talking about gold plating the Oval Office.
What's your argument?
What's my argument?
You're a bootlicking fascist who likes government authority and federal agents?
Absolutely not.
Fire them all.
No, I'm actually a human being, and I feel like when people wake up and they go to work, they probably should get paid for it, Tim. That's the Republicans' responsibility. They have the House and the Senate. It's their job to try to negotiate with Democrats. They're putting it all on Chuck Schumer. This is all his fault.
He's the leader.
Yeah, I understand that, but who's in charge of the House? Who's in charge of the Senate?
Who?
We start off with 49% of the people that are working, that are offered health care, that can't afford it. Those are people that are struggling. You can look up those stats if you don't believe.
Let's try
30% of people that are working are not offered health care.
That is not the same thing. Again, non sequitur, bro. Stop. Okay. 30% of people not being offered by their job health care is not the same as Trump passing a bill will take health care away from people. You're saying things that are consistently just not, it's a non sequitur over and over and over again. It's like Donald Trump sending these troops and now the sky is cloudy. Oh, your mic's not on.
My mic's
You're
on.
being censored.
There you go. I'm being censored by the deep state already for my pro-Trump beliefs.
If he wins his appeal, I will come on this show and I will say, Tim, I was wrong.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. And yes, this is not a Piers Morgan Uncensored, but we are doing the Culture War with Tim Pool. And we've got Brian Shapiro coming in, and a couple of side characters, to be honest with you. You're going to see what I mean by that here in a little while. But these people, they try to interject themselves into the debate, but they're kind of pushed out because it's, genuinely speaking, it's just Tim Pool versus Brian Shapiro. And Brian Shapiro gets utterly decimated in this thing, as does many liberals for the most part, because once again, you know, these liberals, they try to come in and they try to make these arguments, and it's always a non sequitur, straw man, or something like that, and they just can't make that argument, folks. They don't have logic on their side, or at least they don't have enough logic, and usually don't have facts either. Their facts are always skewed for some reason, or they're missing some facts that would actually change your opinion on certain situations or whatever it may be. So this is a fascinating debate, y'all, so y'all make sure and smash that like button for me, subscribe if you're new around here, and check out my regular videos where we go over news and politics, and I actually point out all the manipulations of the corporate press and actually show you what they're doing to manipulate you. So if you're interested in that, getting real news unmanipulated, stay tuned to this channel right here. Share this video anywhere and everywhere you can, and if you would be so inclined, click that join button, sign up, and become a member. That would be the best way to help this channel expand and grow. But without any further ado, folks, here's the debate.
My issues with this, number one, you have a lot of agents across the country that are not identifying themselves as agents. Outside of courtrooms, tackling people, outside of Home Depot, that's against the law. You have to identify yourself. Something needs to say that you're ICE. You know, you can't just go somewhere and tackle somebody and not say you're law enforcement. So that's a big issue, number one. Number two, most of the people, more than 50% of the people that are being detained by ICE and or deported are nonviolent criminals. We were told by the Trump administration that they were going to focus on very violent criminals.
Well, that's a non sequitur.
Well, but you're asking me what my issues are with this, and I'm just going through the list of.
So I'll push back on that one, because whether or not they want to prioritize versus who they're actually deporting it's a non sequitur. I don't understand why. Trump said he was going to deport everybody. It appears they are targeting criminals, and they are largely also in this process getting general criminal aliens.
So are you comfortable, Tim, with people that have never committed a violent crime or a felony being sent to El Salvador type prisons?
They're not all
Are you
going to El
comfortable with
Salvador.
that? Not all of them. I never said that, but some of them are. Are you comfortable?
That's a bit of a straw man.
Well, I'm just asking you if you're comfortable with that.
Am I comfortable in the circumstance where a criminal illegal alien who entered this country, and we don't know to which number, so I guess I could say there's certainly going to be errors in any and all law enforcement. Kamala Harris famously, I'm not saying you support her, but she famously had people kept in prison beyond their release dates, using them as slave labor and things like that. Actually, that's a bad example. I just don't like Kamala Harris. But mistakes happen in law enforcement. We want to mitigate them. They shouldn't happen. U.S. citizens being detained for 24 hours in New York shouldn't happen. But the question is of malice. So if, I don't know, to what degree are we going to accept nonviolent illegal immigrants being sent to what is it called? CICOT? What is it called?
CICOT.
CICOT. There you go. In El Salvador, and it's no nonviolent individuals should not. Then there's another layer to the question, and that is, what if the country will not accept them back? Where do we send them? Now it's getting really muddy and messy, because if we don't have extradition treaties or treaties in general for handing deportations of foreign nationals, well, they don't just get to stay here. So I'm not suggesting they should go to CICOT, but now we've got Kilmar going to, I guess, Uganda or whatever, Uganda.
Well, listen, I think 99% of the country would agree that if you're a violent criminal in this country illegally, you should be deported. I'm one of those people. I think there needs to be some sort of pathway to citizenship for people that are nonviolent criminals that have lived in this country for decades, some of whom do pay taxes. I think there's a better way to do it than the way the Trump administration is doing it. I want border security. I'm not one of those people that thinks that the border should be wide open. Okay.
How many times are we going to do amnesty though? It's like the fourth, right?
I understand that, but I also don't like it when Dr. Phil is there with a microphone making it a spectacle. I feel like there's glee in this. Obama deported a lot of people as well, but I don't think they enjoyed it. I feel like, and this is my personal opinion, that those in the Trump administration and Donald Trump are making it a spectacle. Like they're liking the fact that families are being separated. I think that's immoral.
Well, that's like an emotional reaction. That's not a fact-based.
Well, but
I can't debate how you feel about what Trump is doing.
You think it's emotional? Dr. Phil has said, "Hey, come on down here with Tom Homan and let's interview these people that have handcuffs on them."
You got a problem with Dr. Phil?
I have a problem with making it into a reality show. This is not a reality show. This is real life.
Agreed. Dr. Phil, you knock it off.
I'm not a Dr. Phil fan anyway, Tim. But listen, I just think you're asking me my thoughts on this whole situation, and I don't like the way Trump is going about it. Why is it that he wants white people from South Africa in this country with open arms, but he doesn't want black people from South Africa in this country? Why is that, Tim?
When did he say that?
Well, look at what he did. 10 South Africans were this.
10 people?
I think this was like 3 months ago, welcoming them with open arms with their families, but they all happen to be white. I find that very convenient.
Because there are white people being killed in South Africa.
Yeah, but why is it that he doesn't do the same for people of color? Let's welcome you with open arms.
Because the black people in South Africa are the majority and are the ones chanting "kill the Boer."
Yeah, the government there is a black nationalist government.
You don't find that okay?
You can say it's racial, but it's clearly also very politically aligned. Like the politics of the South African grievance politics and the communism versus the European descendant South Africans who are more free market and more in favor of property rights. So there's an obvious political overlap here.
And there was a white guy, just an illegal immigrant, was just he was a police officer, and they deported him. So it's like I don't think it lends itself to the argument when it's 10 South Africans or one white guy being deported.
Well, I think it comes down to compassion if we're talking about this situation. And there are people in Trump's administration, and I know this goes into the healthcare situation, but there are people that do not believe if you're an undocumented immigrant and you're dropped off at an ER and you need life-saving care, that you should not get that life-saving care, that we should be asking for your paperwork. That is not the country, Tim, that I want to live in. That is no compassion. I'm not saying undocumented immigrants should be getting free health care. And by the way, they don't qualify for Obama's subsidies anyway. But if somebody is dying and they're undocumented, okay, they should be able to get the care that they need in a hospital. And I'm okay paying for that.
I mean, that argument works if Biden didn't let in, on the low end, 10 million illegal immigrants.
Well, you could use the term let in. I'm not going to sit here and defend Biden when it comes to all the undocumented immigrants that came into this country. Clearly, he didn't do a good job.
There's a math question, right? So the famous saying, you must secure your own mask before securing the mask of the person sitting next to you. And that's a great analogy because when the pressure drops, if you're too busy trying to help someone else, you pass out and then no one gets
Let
help.
me flat out ask you, Tim, if somebody is undocumented in this country, I'm not even talking about a violent criminal, somebody who's in this country, undocumented immigrant, they're having a heart attack. Do you believe that if they're dropped off at an ER, that those doctors should not be asking them for their paperwork, that they should try to save their life first?
First and foremost, doctors should just render aid to anybody who's ailing. It's like
I agree, but there's some people that don't agree with you.
But it's not about an illegal immigrant. If like Tate had a heart attack, God forbid, at such a young age.
A lot of Arby's, so I mean.
I know. Okay, doctors.
So you eat like Trump, then? That's what you're saying.
Oh yeah.
Meat doesn't give you heart attacks anymore. It's not the 90s.
I believe in life force. I think the Big Mac does.
The issue isn't illegal immigrants. The issue is literally anybody suffering. If a doctor said, "Well, hold on there, gosh darn minute, let me see some paperwork," that means citizens are going to be denied emergency health care.
Well, here's the deal.
Like you'll die before the doctor can treat you if they're worried about your paperwork.
I don't want to live in a country where somebody is dying and they ask for their paperwork first. Tim, I don't want to live in a country like that.
Because, like I said, it's it's not even a question of illegal immigrants. It's a question of literally anybody going to the hospital being stopped and before they're rendered aid. It's like he's a citizen. He's good. No, we don't have time for that.
Exactly, I agree with you.
So, but the bigger question is
people in the Trump administration do not agree with you.
Well, that's a bit of an extreme example though, because in emergency circumstances, however, the argument of should illegal immigrants generally get medical treatment from our facilities at the taxpayer expense?
In the emergency room, I say yes.
In the case of absolute emergencies, indeed. What if someone shows up to the emergency room and they're like, something's wrong with my hand, it hurts?
Well, that's a different circumstance. Obviously, I'm not talking about, if somebody
you said in the emergency room.
Life-saving care. That's not life-saving care.
So this is the issue. Most of the people in the emergency room are not getting life-saving care.
In
the event someone's having a heart attack or bleeding out, they were shot, whatever, no one's going to stop, and no one should. They should just treat the person. But you go to the emergency room, what do you see? People are all sitting in chairs waiting.
Okay, so this debate for the first part of it, they kind of go all over the place. Brian Shapiro just is leading Tim Pool all over the place with all kind of different subjects and topics and everything. Like, it's wild. But talking about this, like, that doesn't exist. They are pretending, Democrats are pretending that a criminal alien could go into an emergency room if they get their arm cut off or something like that, and the doctors are going to be like, well, let me make sure you're a citizen first. That's not going to happen, folks. That falls well outside of reality. Anytime there's a life-threatening injury, they do the medical procedure first to stabilize you, to save your life, and then let's figure this other nonsense out later, right? So if we figure this other nonsense out later, then look, if you got to come out of pocket for that, hey, that's not on us. Look, you're not supposed to be in this country anyway, but they are going to save your life first. Like, that's the Democrat argument on this, and it doesn't make any sense because it doesn't align with reality. And that's pretty much the hang-up of the government shutdown right now. Democrats, they want those emergency subsidies for criminal aliens, for crying out loud. So, for the vast majority of people that go to the emergency room, it's not life-saving, for goodness sakes. Like, we all know this. A lot of people, they go to the emergency room on the weekends or whenever doctors' offices are closed because they can't see a doctor. We have urgent care facilities now that a lot of people are going to for these issues. So, that's a whole different story. But for the most part, they're going to treat you first and then figure everything else out later, right? They're not going to call ICE on any of these criminal aliens or nothing like that, but that's the hang-up. Democrats want these people to be taken care of. They want the government to pay for this, and the government is not going to pay for this. Look, I'm sorry. They are in certain states, right? And Democrats are getting around this by having the state medical care, or, the state version of Medicare or Medicaid or whatever that may be, to pay for these things and then getting reimbursed from the federal government. And, Democrats use that, as they do, because they play semantic games. Their entire life is a semantic game, and saying, well, no, not a single federal dollar goes to criminal alien health care. And it's like, no, technically it doesn't, but it does go to the state, which the state then does subsidize these things. And so you can't tell me that I am not paying for a criminal alien in California because he broke his hand or something like that. You can't say that because it's not true when you follow the money. And that's what the whole hang up of this government shutdown is, which is complete nonsense if you ask me, but that's a whole different topic. We're going to get into that. Now, I like the first part of that debate talking about, what the Trump administration is doing. This is another thing that Democrats, they tend to play games on, like, oh, he said he was going to prioritize the worst of the worst. He's doing that. Where's your evidence that he's not? As a matter of fact, that's what's going on. Once again, the ICE agents, if they come across somebody who's in the country illegally when doing a raid somewhere, they cannot ignore somebody that's in the country illegally. They must take them into custody. Once again, and just because these people don't have a criminal record in the United States does not mean that they are a violent criminal. That just means they haven't got caught yet. Let's keep going.
That's my understanding. I don't believe this is a Chuck Schumer government shutdown. I do not believe that.
My understanding, so like the core of this debate over the government shutdown and the spending bill is that Democrats want to extend the ACA benefits to refugees, asylum seekers, and DACA recipients.
That's part of it, sure.
Republicans said absolutely not, because those are illegal immigrants.
Well, when you talk about asylum seekers, I think that's some gray area. But what Democrats want to put in place or to keep in place before the big and beautiful bill is being implemented. That's my basic understanding.
It's like Big Beautiful Bill number 2, because they did have the other one. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, look, I don't agree with the right blaming Chuck Schumer, calling it the Schumer shutdown. I understand the votes that they need. I understand how many Democrat votes they need. I get that. But the last government shutdown we had, last I remember, is back in 2019. We didn't have one under the Joe Biden administration. I could also tell you that if, this is not, they're putting it all on Chuck Schumer, the right, MAGA. They're putting it all on Chuck Schumer. This is all his fault.
He's the leader.
Yeah, I understand that. But who's in charge of the House? Who's in charge of the Senate right now?
Should they vote to get rid of the filibuster? I think so. I think just crush the filibuster and then Democrats have no argument. I actually agree with Democrats on this one. They're blaming the Republicans for the shutdown, and the Republicans are countering saying, well, it's because we need at least 60 votes for cloture. And I'm just like, or you get rid of the filibuster, and then you make sure Democrats never win another election.
I mean, are Republicans working hard? How many weeks were they on vacation? How many times did Mike Johnson say stay on vacation? Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. That's the August.
Why can't they sit down and negotiate?
Recess.
Why is Hakeem Jeffries lying when he says Mike Johnson has not called him up to sit down and try to talk and negotiate? Is Hakeem Jeffries lying?
What's the negotiation? Like, we want to give
that's the Republicans' responsibility. They have the House and the Senate. It's their job to try to negotiate with Democrats. It's their responsibility.
This is a 2 to tango situation, and
so why won't they sit down, Tim?
Because they don't need to.
They don't need to?
Indeed.
Look at all the people that aren't getting paid right now.
And Democrats could be like, fine, we won't give health care to illegal immigrants, and we'll give you the 5 votes.
You don't think that in Washington, D.C. right now, people don't need to negotiate and sit down and come to terms and get somewhere in the middle?
Well, this is how government shutdowns.
You're right. They could just abolish the filibuster and reopen government in seconds.
I understand that, but you're saying that you don't think that that Mike Johnson should be reaching out to Democrats when Democrats are reaching out to him and say, okay, listen, we might not get anywhere, but let's at least try.
Well, there's multiple factors here. First, I would say, I already agreed, Republicans could shut this down in 2 seconds by ending the filibuster and the nuclear option. And everyone says, but Democrats will get back in power. Oh, yeah, fucking right. If Democrats get back in power, it's the least of their worries that they might ram stuff through the Senate. So maybe they should just, in the Senate, say, okay, filibuster's gone, government's open. The other issue is Republicans want the government shut down. And I don't care too much about the government shutdown. They want the government shut down because it's giving them pretext to start firing tons of people, which is exactly what Trump wanted to do.
You don't care about brave men and women in uniform not getting paid?
They're getting paid.
They got paid.
Okay, but for a little while they weren't getting paid. You don't care about.
No, they never missed a paycheck.
People at the airport, TSA agents, and people all over the country that are not getting their paychecks. You don't care about that?
I don't.
There's been shutdowns.
What's your argument? What's your argument? Hold on. What's your argument?
What's my argument?
You're a bootlicking fascist who likes government authority and federal agents?
Absolutely not.
Fire them all.
No, I'm actually a human being, and I feel like when people wake up and they go to work, they probably should get paid for it, Tim.
Well, you can quit.
Well, you can quit?
Yeah, see, I'm on the very libertarian spectrum of I don't think government should be as bloated as big as it is. And I actually voted for Trump because he said he was going to fire tons of people. So I'm fine with doing it slowly. But if Democrats are like, we want to give ACA benefits to non-citizens, so we won't reopen the government, and then Trump is like, I'm going to fire people.
Let's backtrack a little bit. Let's backtrack a little bit, Tim, for a moment. Hold on a second. families and fathers and mothers that are working in all different types of different positions in government jobs.
Yeah.
They rely on that paycheck. And they're not getting a paycheck because of a government shutdown, regardless of whether you blame the right or the left.
Should drop their illegal immigrants.
And your response to them would be, I don't care, quit your job.
Well, one of the responses I could say is stop relying on big daddy government to take care of you. My first statement is I'm sorry the Democrats did this to you. Okay, maybe if they didn't want to give ACA benefits to illegal immigrants, the government would be open. Now, Republicans could, as I already mentioned, end the filibuster right now and reopen government, but they don't want to because Trump wants to fire a ton of people. So I'm sitting back being like, well, it's what is it called? The Xanatos Gambit. I was reading about this the other day, where no matter the outcome, your side benefits. Trump's attitude is if Democrats want to give illegal immigrants health care under ACA and keep the government shut down, they won't give us the 5. I think they need, 6 votes?
6, I believe, yeah.
6 votes. And he's like, okay, then the government's shut down. Fine. I'm going to start firing people. Okay. Win-win.
All right.
Well, it's also important who's being fired, right? Because we can talk about police officers, civil servants, et cetera, which is the majority of government workers. But the people that he's really targeting are the 500,000 federal bureaucrats, and they're getting huge payout packages, which is fine. We could pay them 4 times their salaries to quit, and it would still be worth it because they're the ones that are managing the economy without accountability and destroying innovation and costing us unimaginable amount of.
It's just wild to be like. So I'll step back and give you my assessment. The TSA is bad. I've met a lot of TSA agents when I travel, and they're fans, and I respect that. But the agency itself, I think, is a bad expansion of government, and we complained about it when it happened. But the problem is, the government creates something, and then liberals defend it, or independents, or whatever your argument is, right? So amnesty. We get amnesty in the 80s and 90s and 2000s, and once again, it's always gonna be amnesty. At a certain point, you got to be like, guys, we're not doing it a 4th time. It's not going to happen. No amnesty. Everybody's got to go. You're a criminal alien. You got to get out. And then the same thing with government agents and government shutdowns. It's like we've expanded the executive branch. We've expanded federal authority. We've expanded federal law enforcement over and over and over again. And instead of being like, maybe at some point we need to stop and say we're spending too much and expanding government too much, we get the liberal side, which is, no, just this time we need amnesty. Whatever it may be, pay all of them now. Defending the TSA, the liberals were angry about the TSA when H.W. Bush was creating all this stuff.
Yeah, it's the only time I've ever been sexually abused multiple times. Which is actually a problem.
And I understand this because I've long talked about the problems in a post-capitalist society where, I met a homeless guy a long time ago in Chicago, old black guy, and I had some pizza left over from a restaurant. I asked him if he wanted it, if he was hungry. He said he was. I said, here you go, brother. And then I was like, can I ask you a question? Just curious how you ended up homeless. And he said, well, I'll give you the simple version. He worked at the post office for 20 some odd years, never really a high ranking guy or anything. Eventually they said they were going to be shutting down, his post office was going on a restructuring or whatever. And so he didn't have a backup plan. He couldn't afford a retirement. So the first thing he does, he starts collecting some benefits, but then it's not enough to pay his rent and pay for food. He chooses between buying food or paying rent. He chooses buying food. Then he's late on rent. He pays what he can. Eventually he gets evicted, and that's it. And he said, man, let me tell you, he's like, my friends are dead. My family's long dead. I don't got anybody else, and eventually got nowhere to go. And I said, well, that's messed up. This guy didn't do anything wrong. How does he end up in a situation like this? I can respect the individual and these circumstances, but we also have to understand that we are building a system that is growing and growing and growing. And I'll put it like this, because I've experienced this as a business owner. When we try to look at costs, why are we spending so much money? You know what we find? There is never one thing you're spending too much money on. And so we're like, what are we doing over here with this skateboard stuff? Are we spending too much? Like, God, honestly, we're not really spending that much money at all. Okay, well then what about some of these shows over here? Really? It's a couple of grand. And I'm like, it's a snowflake and an avalanche. No one is ever going to be happy when you have to do the cuts, because it's going to affect so many individuals, and an individual's worth is substantially more important than the amount of money you take by cutting the program. But when you are cutting down costs, sometimes you have no choice, and individuals are going to get negatively
So let's
impacted.
be fiscally responsible by gold plating the White House. Is that fiscally
Who's paying for it?
No, I'm not talking about the ballroom. I'm talking about gold plating the
It's a
Oval
ballroom.
Office.
And who's paying for it?
Yeah, well,
I
if
think
you want to
that's
talk
gonna
about being
be-
fiscally responsible, the guy who you support got us $8.2 trillion in debt his first go.
Well, that's
come
that's
on, bro.
when
We're not
we
gonna
get
talk
into the
about
other
one
side of this
president's debt.
equation.
And that right there's the current problem with Democrats, folks. They want to continually keep increasing spending. And Republicans are looking at the national debt and they're looking at our deficit spending and they're like, hang on, we can't keep doing this. Something has to give, folks. And this is one reason why I support Donald Trump, because he's taking certain agencies of the federal government and reducing them down to legally minimized requirements, right? And that's it. Like the Education Department, USAID, and all these other entities that we don't need to function. And he's minimizing this. Now, the argument about renovating the White House, that's something totally different. Like, sure, I understand your arguments here, but every president does this. Like, I understand the ballrooms being funded by something totally different, but, renovating the White House is not. But that is also a drop in the bucket. But that is a criticism of Donald Trump. He's spending money where he doesn't need to be spending money. And, this is another issue with increasing the military's budget. That's being increased as well. And we're not reducing other agencies enough. We're not reducing the deficit enough. Folks, I talk about this all the time. $1.8 trillion deficit spending. We can't continue this. This is completely unsustainable. And the insane fact to Democrat policy, they want to increase spending, folks. They want to give criminal aliens health care and all this other nonsense. We can't do that. We're not going to go around increasing taxes to cover these people because these people are not supposed to be in the country. And Democrats, I believe, my personal opinion, they want to keep the government shut down. This is why they're introducing legislation to fund SNAP, so they don't get browbeat by their own constituency, for goodness sakes. So they're trying to minimize the damage to their base, and that's it. Because the only states that are supposedly getting funding for SNAP was the 26 Democratic-led states that sued the federal government to fund the SNAP benefits with contingency funds, for crying out loud. It's ridiculous, y'all. They just want to minimize the damage to their own. But this government shutdown is intentional because think about it like this. What do the Democrats hate the most? What are they screeching the most about? Oh, with the deportation operation. Well, if ICE agents go unpaid, do you think they're going to continue to show up to work? Sure, they might do that for a little while, but do you think they're going to go a month, 2 months, 3 months without a paycheck? No, of course not. They're going to have to provide for their families. They're going to go look for work elsewhere. I think that's the plan for Democrats. They have no signs, whatever, of any logical argument why they should continually keep the government shut down. And they are intentionally doing it, folks. They voted 13 times to keep the government shut down. Why the argument for the ACA subsidies doesn't make any sense, because that's an argument that can be made later in the year. We've got another whole 2 months to the rest of this year for them to debate ACA subsidies. And all they would have to do is agree. Look, let's agree that no criminal alien gets ACA subsidies, right? That the states do not subsidize criminal alien health care from federal dollars. That's all they have to agree to. And then Republicans will probably sign off on these emergency subsidies or whatever. So, yeah, the argument is not there. They are intentionally keeping the government shut down, folks, because they want the federal government to suffer, because they want Trump to be hamstrung. Think about it, folks. They hate Trump. They hate everything he stands for, which by extension means they hate everything that America stands for. Because law and order, that's what America stands for. That's what this country was built upon. Blind justice, for crying out loud. And all these things, right? Putting America first and all that, right? So they don't care about anything, folks. But, I've been rambling, so let's go on to the next section.
So you want accountability for criminals. Is that right, Tim?
Yes.
Okay. Then why would you support a 34-count felon?
He's not a felon.
This is the craziest whataboutism I've ever seen.
What was he charged with?
Not whataboutism.
What's the criminal charge?
Is he a 34-count felon, convicted
not.
felon? Yes or no?
No.
Yes, he is.
No, he's not.
He wasn't sentenced, but he was
Nope.
convicted by a jury. Was he
Nope.
not?
It's not.
Was he found guilty or not guilty of 34 counts?
What were the charges?
I'm asking you a question.
The answer is no.
Why do you answer the question? Maybe
answer-
you're the one with the cognitive difficulties.
The
Why don't
answer
you
is
my
no.
question?
The answer is
So-
no. The answer is no again, no again, no again. Now tell me what he was charged with.
So wait, the jury did not find Donald Trump guilty.
Correct. Yes.
I mean, the earth isn't flat, Tim.
What was he charged with?
What? Wait, you just said a jury did not find him guilty.
Indeed, that's correct.
Where are you getting that from?
Because Trump was never actually charged with any real crimes.
Okay, so you're saying...
So hold on. Is your argument, did a group of people come together
whether you agree or not is not the question, okay?
Well, so we're having a conversation on the logic and the facts of the matter. And the facts of the matter is Trump was not legitimately charged with any crime. So he can't be found
That's your
guilty.
Opinion? That's your opinion.
It's a fact.
Okay, it's a fact.
It is indeed a
So
fact.
a jury found him guilty.
Of what?
You're wrong.
Of what?
Okay.
Of what?
You say
Of what?
34 count
Of what?
felon.
Of what?
Okay.
Of
Well,
what?
did he
Of
not?
what? Of what?
I'm answering
Of
it.
what?
I'm answering it. Did he not make up and falsify business records?
He did not.
He did not. Okay.
That wasn't the case. Did you watch? Did you check?
I did.
So who actually?
So he
was
didn't break
accused?
the law.
Who was accused of it?
He didn't break the law.
Who he did not. Well,
Okay.
Perhaps
So
maybe.
in your opinion, perhaps
maybe
Okay,
no. Okay, stop. I'm going to mute you if you try and play that stupid stuff because you interrupt me while I'm making the point that perhaps
Go ahead.
maybe
I'm listening.
perhaps maybe it was a misdemeanor falsification of business records from his CFO. Perhaps, maybe. Don't cut me off when I say perhaps, maybe to change the context of what I'm saying. Donald Trump was accused of misdemeanor falsification of business records by instructing a lower staffer we don't know he actually instructed. All because of Cohen making a claim about paying Stormy Daniels. This cannot be upgraded to a felony because it's what's called requiring an underlying crime, which never in the history of the United States has been done before. Donald Trump, in this charge, was convicted falsely.
In your opinion.
It's not an opinion. It is a fact.
So the judge got it wrong. The
Indeed.
courts got it wrong.
Absolutely.
But you got it right.
What was the underlying crime?
The problem I have with
Answer
this
the
conversation-
fucking question.
What was the underlying
Yes.
crime? 34 counts.
Of
okay.
what?
Okay. Falsifying business records was certainly
Underlying
one of
crime.
them.
Name it.
I don't have it right in front
There
of me.
isn't one.
Okay. But so you're saying that the judge got it wrong, the jury got it wrong, he had the right to
For
defend
the love
himself
of all
in a
that is
courtroom.
holy,
They
this
all
is
got
the
it wrong.
problem with
Okay.
this country.
They all got it wrong.
What is the underlying crime?
He was convicted in a court of law, Tim.
What? Oh my God. What is the underlying crime?
What is the underlying crime?
Okay, let's stop.
I think Tim wants you to point it out.
Let's wait.
Highlights. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
What was he charged with? Just give me the sentence. Give me the single phrase.
What I know is that he was a 34 count felon convicted.
Oh
in a
my
court of
God!
law. That's what I know.
What was he
I don't have
charged
the
with?
case. I don't have the case right in front
You
of
don't
me.
know.
I don't have the case right in
You
front
are
of
in
me.
a cult.
I'm
You
in a
are a
cult?
cultist.
How am I a
Yes.
cultist?
You don't know what you're talking about, and
I
you're
don't know what I'm
zealously
talking
arguing
about.
for it.
I don't know what I'm talking about. You're the one who just looked
Okay.
me in the eye and told me that a jury did not find him guilty. Now you can
Stop.
you can
Let's try this
disagree
again.
with it.
What was he charged with?
Again,
You don't know?
again,
Do you know or do you not know?
he falsified business records. Okay.
What's the charge?
I don't have the charges.
You
right
don't
in front of
know,
me.
do you?
I don't.
Maybe you should then
don't have
say,
the
I
charges
don't
right in front of
know.
me.
Maybe. How about you say this? I don't know.
You can tell me what
You
the
say, I don't
charges
know?
are, but he was still convicted in a court of law.
Do you wanna say,
can
I don't know?
disagree with it.
He
I don't
was-
have it right in front of me. That doesn't mean that I'm wrong with what I'm saying.
It
He was still
certainly
convicted.
does because you don't know what you're talking
So
about.
he wasn't found guilty in a court of law.
He was not found guilty in a court of
That's
law.
the only point I was making.
Of a criminal action for which falsification was an aggravated factor. You don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know what I'm talking about.
It is one of the most controversial cases in U.S. history where for the first time an aggravated charge was placed without the government proving an underlying case. They upgraded misdemeanors, which require an underlying crime, but they never proved a crime
So let me ask you a
actually
question.
happened.
Then why couldn't his attorneys prove that in a court of law?
They did! Bro, this is why it's under appeal and they have not issued a sentence yet.
So in our country,
don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know what I'm talking about. Oh, here's what I do.
You can't even name the charges. You don't know who
Just because I can't name the charges doesn't mean he wasn't convicted in a court
who
of law.
falsified the records.
Well, he didn't falsify the records per se, but people that were doing it, that were
Okay,
behind
all right,
it
let's
were.
slow down. Let's slow down and calm down. You don't know the facts of the case.
Do you know all the facts in the case?
I know a
You have
good
more.
plenty
You
of-
have more evidence than what the jury heard.
I have a good plenty of more evidence than you to found my arguments.
Okay, but did you have the evidence that the jury had?
Indeed, it was all released.
Oh, you had all the evidence that the jury saw.
So we're not going to speak in absolutes. The American public was
asking you.
privy to the information and the jury testimony, and juries
Okay.
gave.
All right, so he's innocent. He didn't do anything wrong. The left went after him. It was George Soros.
Make a real argument.
Okay, sure. You have a 6-year-old daughter, right? Which, by the way, congratulations.
don't.
Oh, I thought you had a daughter. I
I do, but she's not 6.
Well, by the way, congratulations on that.
I appreciate it.
So
Now we're nice again.
I like good-spirited debates. I like this stuff. So, Tim, if your daughter was 12 or I don't know how old she is, but if she was 12 or 13 years old and she was in a pageant and a creepy man went in there without her permission and talked about it sexually on the Howard Stern show, which he did.
Okay, wait, hold on.
Yep.
Were we
I don't know what's funny about that.
Were we just
Well, it's just
talking?
like
we're just talking about
Well,
the court case.
we're talking
with
about the
Trump.
moral aspect of Donald Trump now because we've talked about morals.
Oh, he's a pig.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have no.
He's got serious decorum problems and attitude problems.
Forget about
I
the.
tell you
He
what.
did stop
I
World War
appreciate
III,
that.
though. so
Forget
that's-
about the legal argument for a moment, okay? Forget about the legalities of Donald Trump. I'm just asking.
So he's not a felon.
Why should we forget about that?
Well, because I'm asking about morals now. I'm talking about the moral aspect of why I don't support him, okay? And I'm trying to have a conversation with you about morals. Are you comfortable? You're comfortable with the leader of the free world being a liable sexual abuser who's had dozens of women that have accused him of rape or sexual assault, including his ex-wife
No,
in
that's all
court
bad.
documents?
That's all bad.
It's all really. It's kind of really bad, isn't it?
You know what? I have a trouble with the United States of America, especially
Yeah.
because Barack Obama murdered a 16-year-old American citizen by bombing a civilian restaurant in Yemen. Whataboutism? This is
I asked you a question about Donald Trump.
and
not Barack
I agreed
Obama.
with you.
So why would you support somebody like that?
For the
You're
same
okay with
for
that?
the same reason that people probably support Obama murdering children. The
What was
issue
it about
is,
Kamala? Name me one thing that Kamala Harris has done in her
let's
life.
slow
that's-
down
that's
and
that bad.
say the issue at hand is we always call this the lesser of two evils, and we could take.
See, and that's where people like Tim Pool will get you, because you could go out and read a headline saying Donald Trump convicted of 34 felony counts of falsifying business records or whatever, and then you hear Tim Pool saying, no, he didn't, as a matter of fact. And you're like, well, I read the headline. And Tim's like, yeah, but do you know the case? And you're like, not really. You don't know what's going on with this. The interesting fact on all this is, the underlying crime, which was unprecedented for them to actually elevate falsifying business records, which was a misdemeanor, as he said. They didn't have to prove that. And as a matter of fact, all three of those quote-unquote crimes that he was investigated for, he was exonerated. They said he did not commit those underlying crimes that elevated a misdemeanor to a felony. That's why it's all fake. All of it's fake. This will never get through on appeals. It's going to be overturned. There were several due process violations in that particular case by itself that could overturn this, not to mention the fact that the jury instructions violated due process because the jury did not have to agree on which one of the three underlying crimes that elevated this to a felony. They didn't have to agree. They didn't have to be unanimous on that. These three could have picked one, these four could have picked another one, and the other three, they could have, just said, screw it. Picked one, or whatever, it doesn't matter. They could have just said, I don't care. And they would have still found him guilty regardless. That, to me, does not sound like justice, does it? No, that sounds like a weaponized court that wants to convict a man and just don't care about what the actual crime was. It's fascinating, y'all. It really is. He was exonerated on the underlying crimes. The FEC investigated him for any of the federal election campaign violations or whatever. So all of it was bogus, folks. All of it was bogus. The underlying crimes did not exist. He did not commit those crimes. Therefore, the misdemeanor that was elevated to a felony did not exist. It was all fake. And Tim Pool, he doesn't kind of do a good job of explaining that, but if you put it all together, that's how it works out, folks. The underlying crimes, he never committed those. They couldn't prove he ever committed those, but the argument from the court is, it doesn't matter if he committed the underlying crime or not, right? It doesn't matter. The argument from the court is, was the intent to commit that crime there? Well, hang on. Now we get into this whole intent territory. That's how they base their judgment, was upon intent. Did he intend to commit this crime, but didn't commit it to elevate a misdemeanor to a felony of falsifying a business record? And that's how they got him. And I don't think that's going to stick. I think that's a novel legal theory that falls well outside of the bounds of jurisprudence, in my opinion. I'm not a legal expert, though. But once again, I've looked into this case just as much as Tim has, and I find many, many holes in this case. Once again, folks, not to mention all of the due process rights violations. There's several due process rights violations. But just the novel theory that they were going to use that, he intended to violate campaign finances or whatever. That's why, you know, with the whole payment of the Stormy Daniels payment, the hush-hush money payment, right? That's how the falsifying business records came into play. Oh, he intended to violate the campaign regulations or whatever. What? But he didn't violate those campaign regulations. That was all legal. You can actually have somebody, you can send somebody a hush money payment to shut them up. That's totally legal. And you can do it with well, you can't do it with campaign dollars. But that's the problem. He didn't do it with campaign dollars. Michael Cohen did it out of his personal account. And Michael Cohen was his lawyer at the time. And later, like months later, he paid Michael Cohen for his services. That's where they were trying to say the falsifying of business records was. That Michael Cohen did this, and that was, you know, that was the campaign violation or whatever. And then Donald Trump paid him after becoming president, as a matter of fact, and they could never prove it was with campaign dollars. They never could prove that because it wasn't with campaign dollars. That's what the FEC investigation was. So that was one of the underlying crimes that elevated the you know, business records, the falsifying business records or whatever, to a felony. It was all bogus. If they would have went in for just the falsifying business records, the misdemeanor falsifying business records, that's an open and shut case. He did that. Boom. Or, you know, whoever his CFO was did that. That's an open and shut case. The fact that you're going to try to elevate this to a misdemeanor, and it wasn't they were trying to get justice, folks. That's not what it is. Because at the same time in New York, at that very same moment, they were letting criminals go, violent criminals that were shoving people in front of subway trains. Yeah, they were letting those people out of jail on their own recognizance, which is absurd. They didn't care about justice at all. They wanted Donald Trump to be hamstrung so he couldn't campaign. We all know this, folks. That's why that whole case is bogus. That's why all the cases against Trump are bogus. Because there was a definite political motivating factor behind all of it, folks. You guys do me that favor, smash that like button for me. Subscribe if you're new around here. Share this video anywhere and everywhere you can, because I love debates. I love injecting myself into the debate, to interject into the arguments, to clarify points or just make my own point clear. Obviously, right? Because I do this on weekends for fun, and I love doing it. But you guys, click that join button for me. I need y'all's help. You can see we're struggling to grow around here. So y'all do that for me. And you guys remember that God loves each and every one of you out there, and he has a plan for all of us. You may not know what that plan is, but it's there. I can assure you it's there. But you guys try to have a good day and stay legitical. Peace.